Cole Scott, the Gorilla Journalist. Welcome to Iron Subculture. The fairly new category of men's physique launched with a great deal of negative reaction from bodybuilders, but it has grown at a rapid rate. The fact that they compete in board shorts has not helped their perception. In 2016, there will be the introduction of a second men's classic physique division. When they mention the term classic physique, the name Frank Zane is often mentioned. Zane was 3 times Mr. Olympia in 1977 through 79 and set the standards for bodybuilding at that time. Balance and aesthetics took precedence over sheer muscle mass. Here are the questions on everybody's mind. In the new men's classic physique division, is it based on the aesthetic build of 3-time Mr. Olympia Frank Zane? Was Zane's under 200-pound body built on low levels of anabolic steroid usage? Does the current performance-enhancing drug usage in physique resemble that same level of intake? And what PED intake would build a classic Zane-like physique? I brought in 3 contest prep experts that have a knowledge of physique-enhancing drugs and also are known for being open with giving honest answers to these kind of controversial topics. They are Skip Hill, Paul Scarborough, and Jeff Storch.
You know, I believe them to be very similar as far as the aesthetic look that they're going for. We kind of don't know as far as the legs aspect because of the board short situation. I always thought Frank Zane had great legs, to match his physique. I think it's very similar, very marketable.
I think it compares purely only in size. I think it compares in structure. Obviously, Frank was a small bodybuilder by anybody's stretch of imagination, and I think the men's physique classes essentially started off like that. They wanted a nice flowing physique. I do think that men's physique is slightly different now, and I also think that Frank Zane was more of a complete bodybuilder. So not a men's physique, but there are comparisons that you can make.
I don't think there's much comparison at all, quite frankly. Bodybuilder is a bodybuilder, and a men's physique guy is a men's physique guy. Even the bodybuilders from that era still carried much more muscle mass than the current day men's physique competitors. Obviously, they also had much more size and much more muscularity in their legs, and they didn't cover them with board shorts.
The question that often comes up is, how does the Olympia physique of Frank Zane compare to the modern physique competitors of the current day?
Back then it was counted as unusual for men to have that much muscle, but I think it was more accepted because it was more achievable. But then, starting with Haney to a degree, but certainly with Dorian and most certainly with Coleman, that just got further and further out of the normal person's grasp, and the physique started to sort of elicit that you couldn't get it with hard work and good diet. You needed to use drugs. You needed to supplement your training and diet with performance-enhancing drugs.
Basically, like any other sport or anything else in this world, it evolves, and each generation outdoes the previous. And I think it's kind of to the point now where it's freak show. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I love the sport. I like the fact that we're different than everybody else. But the guys of this era are much, much bigger than the last generation, and that generation was bigger than the generation before, and the generation coming up now is going to outdo this generation.
I don't think the sport was ever accepted by the general public, ever. I don't think it's ever been accepted, because even Frank Zane to the layman is a huge man. Back in the day, I mean, a 180-pound lean guy at his height is big compared to a normal person. The same goes for women. Even women, figure competitors to a regular guy are big. It's not a marketable. I don't think it's ever been marketable to the general public, which I don't understand why they keep trying to do that. It's never going to be marketable to the general public.
So I think the mainstream public didn't find it terribly appealing in the 90s. Less so now. The 80s, I think the further back you go, the look was probably a little bit more appealing. I remember picking up a bodybuilding magazine when I was 16 years old in the middle of the 80s thinking, that's attainable. Maybe I can do that. If I picked up a bodybuilding magazine right now, I would look at it and go, there's no freaking way.
Is a broad general acceptance better for the sport of bodybuilding, or is it better for us to remain a small subculture?
As far as I'm concerned, mainstream acceptance, I don't see any benefit. The subculture aspect is appealing. I think as a bodybuilder, I know I got into it thinking I want to be different than other people. I hear all the time cliche statements like, I loathe mediocrity, I don't want to look like everybody else. I think to a bodybuilder, the subculture really is appealing. The fact that we're not like other people.
I hate where the sport is going, to be honest. I mean, I've been in this now this is my 30th year competing, and I hate the fact that women's bodybuilding is gone. That goes back to that, it being accepted. But women's physique, to a regular guy, they're humongous. You know, so it's never going to be acceptable. I don't understand why they keep pushing it in that direction, because it's never ever going to be. So I don't know. I hate it. I hate where the sport's going, but I'm a purist. So
I think far too many people have tried to make it more mainstream. Obviously, the IFBB and over here in the UK, the UKBFF, have tried to make it an Olympic sport, and I really think it's going to fall flat on its face. I think bodybuilding is best left as a subculture, mainly because I think guys prefer us to be, competitors, bodybuilders prefer to be not considered as normal. So by pure emphasis of that, they want to be a subculture.
I do believe that men's physique and the new divisions, even for the females, from figure to bikini, is making the sport as a whole. It's going to get more exposure, I guess. But bodybuilding itself, no, I don't believe at all that anybody thinks that mainstream acceptance would benefit the sport, or that anybody really cares to have it.
Men's physique is relatively new. How have the standards evolved? Do you think that the standards are continuing to evolve, or have they stabilized?
I think the biggest difference now from a couple of years ago when men's physique first came out to the current state of it is size of the competitor and condition of the competitor. A couple of years ago when it first came out, essentially the criteria was a pretty boy, lean, good six-pack, nice physique, good shoulders, that sort of thing, but really generally a really achievable physique. And you look at the guys now in the UK, they're absolutely shredded, and they've got an immense shoulder to waist ratio.
They're getting bigger. To me, they're getting bigger and they're getting leaner. And that's the way it always seems to progress whenever they do, they start a new division. It starts a certain way and then it progresses. I don't think it's finalized yet. I think they're going to get a little bit bigger, a little bit harder, but I think they're getting it to where they want it at this point as far as with how they want them to pose, the look that they're going for. I think it's about ready to stabilize.
They're absolutely evolving. I think every division that is created will evolve. Bodybuilding has evolved over decades. Men's physique hasn't been around very long, but it certainly is evolving. The most obvious point is they're getting bigger. The conditioning, of course, is a lot better too. So what you're getting into now, or what you're seeing at the higher level shows, is you're seeing much bigger, much better conditioned, and of course still with that men's physique waist. It's an appealing look, quite frankly. If I was just getting into the sport and it wasn't 30 years ago, it's only in the last 5 years, I may find the men's physique division appealing myself. And quite frankly, I think the women do too.
Obviously, good looks and things have to come into it. That's purely in the criteria. But you look at the guys in America now in those classes, and they're 20, 30, 40 pounds bigger than the guys in the UK. And I think that's where the UK will go to. And I think the guys in the States will evolve even more, probably over the next 12 months, and then it'll probably stabilise. And probably just like most things, it might then go backwards a little bit, and not to emphasise so big. Because I think, especially with some of the American men's physiques that I've seen, the guys could swap their shorts for trunks and get in the bodybuilding classes. And I think that's the bad thing. I think it's starting to evolve into that, which is not a good thing, I don't think.
You guys have experienced prepping competitors. Can you compare the visual differences in a bodybuilder physique and a physique competitor's body?
The guys that I prep, I tell them to focus on abs, pecs, and arms, because that's really what they're looking for in that first. I mean, their back shots are almost like, to me, when I'm judging, it's an afterthought. The back shots are. It's all about that Tommy Hilfiger look. Bigger than Tommy Hilfiger look, but nevertheless, that aesthetic, pretty look. But mostly pecs, arms, and abs.
Because there is greater emphasis on the shoulder-waist ratio, on condition through the midsection, far, far greater than there is in bodybuilding. Yes, you've got to be conditioned in bodybuilding, but in men's physique, it's far more emphasized. And obviously, to a lesser degree, legs. The men's physique guys don't. You can't see the legs. Visually, you can't see it. So, essentially, they could be stick legs. So there's less emphasis on the lower body, more emphasis, in my opinion, on like the V-taper and looks.
Well, in bodybuilding, it's pretty much about get as huge as you can. I know we talk about proportions and symmetry, whatever. When you gain, the average guy gains 5 inches on his chest to back measurement. He's going to gain 3 inches on his midsection and on his abs. They're going to thicken up the obliques and everything else. So in men's physique, it's different in the sense that there's far more of an emphasis on what I call, is supposed to be in bodybuilding, but is called the X-frame, where you, you know what, maybe it's not an X-frame, maybe it's more a Y-frame, maybe that's more accurate, where the shoulders are wide, the upper back is wide, chest is big, and then everything tapers down. And of course you lose, I say Y instead of X because you lose the bottom half of the X because the legs don't matter in men's physique. They're covered. So in bodybuilding, everything is big. In men's physique, there's far more of an emphasis on shape, proportion, and streamlining and keeping that waist small.